And the theme of this month is invest. So basically, all creative mornings, all chapters in around the world, they have one theme that connects them. So every city does their own interpretation of the theme, and this is invest. And I've invited someone to talk about investing. And this is your cue, you know? So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome João Vitória.
So a little bit of housekeeping before I kick off. Thank you all for being here. This is very early. Well, not for me because my kids wake me up at 5. Rob and Sean are right. And I'd like to thank Now for hosting. It's kind of interesting for me because one of the people that runs Now was a colleague at my first job 25 years ago. So that's kind of sweet. And thank you, Rafa, for not only the invite, but for challenging me to talk about invest, because that was not my first option. And so if it doesn't go as expected, 50% of the fault is hers. But yeah, it was a good challenge, because it made me look at what I'm doing right now, what I've been doing for the past years, and look at it in a different perspective. And I'm going to share that with you today. So I was born in the US. I've been living in Portugal since I was 11. New Jersey never goes away. 35 years in. So when I moved here in 84, something like that, my Portuguese was awful. So hanging out with other kids and having fun was not like really easy. And today you move from one city to the other, and culture is more or less global, so you get more or less the same stuff. If you don't get it, you know about it, right? So my stuff was, in 84, very different from the stuff kids used to play with here, or what they were interested in. So my parents got me a ZX Spectrum, which was really popular in Europe. And I read a lot of comic books. I really love these. I collect them since 1977 until today. Yeah, this was pretty much my life for the first years. So I played games, obviously. Then I thought it was interesting to learn how to code, because there's a lot of books on this. Let me go back. Let me acknowledge Vanessa Devoto being here. She was the first speaker last month. Yeah. I'm not doing this to embarrass you. I think she's amazing. We did a really cool project 2 years ago, and it was absolutely unbelievable that you were the first speaker. So round of applause for her. So, yeah, coding and comic books. So this is how I invested my time outside of school. And it was the first different thought I got from your challenge, which was, whatever you invest in, you'll get something in return. So if you do nothing, you're investing in resting. So I invested in things that intrigued me, like code, and things that amused me, like comic books. And at the time, I remember everybody saying, why would you spend time or waste your time programming or learning how to code and reading comic books? Fast forward 36 years, the thing on the left is one of the biggest franchises in the world, culturally relevant, right? And coding is something that actually helped me as a creative director at the agency, as a writer, as understanding technology, because today it's everywhere, right? So knowing how stuff works really helped me out. So yeah, that investment paid out, totally not planned. Any investment I made in my life in terms of knowledge was not planned, so very fortunate about that. So my latest investment was at 44 years of age, years young. I decided to do an MBA. And fortunately, there's one in the creative leadership, the Berlin School. If you don't know about it, you should check it. They have awesome programs. So I got the opportunity to study from Tokyo to Berkeley in California, which is a very unique experience. And again, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was maybe the time to learn some more skills. And huge investment, monetary and time-wise, obviously, and takes time away from the family. But what I got back from it is just beyond expectation. not just the hard skills you get from an MBA learning, like the law and accounting and economics and all that. Being exposed to other people, because by the way, this is not just creative directors, I have like accountants and lawyers that take this MBA. What you learn about yourself is just unbelievable. And so every time you go to Tokyo or China or whatever, you have to write like a journal about the experience. When I came back from Berkeley, it took me 1 year to write it. That's how intense the experience was, because it was all about self-discovery and self-awareness. So yeah, that was a little investment. Let's see what I get back from that. I know what I got back from the ZX Spectrum and comic books. This to be determined. So this is how I see creativity. Now it's how I see investment. So I think we're all us like a kaleidoscope, that you just put different things inside, different shapes, different colors, and when you twist it, different things come out. So the more you put in it, the more diverse it is, the bigger your investment in just learning stuff, the more rich your output will be. No clue that coding would have helped me. No clue that the Avengers was going to be this big, or Tolkien, or all that geeky stuff I used to read and still do. So, yeah, but staying on the couch is good also. So I left the last agency I worked for in the last day of 2019, and no clue what I'm doing right now. I'll get to that a little bit later. But investing in myself, resting, eating right. Now I learned that Portuguese food is not heavy on vegetables. A lot. Investing time with my family, with my kids. And, yeah, all good. So my attitude is that creativity is not a department. And this is, I'd say, kind of counterintuitive if you work in agencies, because especially if it's ads, it's going to be a writer and an art director. But if you put an art director and a writer doing stuff, what's going to come out is ads, and you need a little bit more diversity right now. So the project I did with Vanessa, we took an outdoor and did a crowd paint. So she did the art, and we had this clever trick on how to make it work out, but it was actually a huge billboard painted by people that were passing in the street that had no clue what they were doing. They were doing it with an indoor paint, and it came out great because we combined creative thought from very different things. So Vanessa used to work also as an art director, but now she's an artist, and she learned different stuff. So me, having an engineering background in college and understanding how printing and infrastructure of billboards works, we came up with something that was very unique. So, and creativity is not just limited to agency work. I think we have to be creative in every single industry you work in, because cabs and hotels and a lot of other industries were just relaxing and we're all good, right? That went well for them, right? So, creativity is an attitude, and I think that it's an attitude that you invest into learning new things, different things, invest into relationships and working with different people, collaborating, and trying to come up with something different. And coming up with something different can be disruptive innovation, which is what everybody kind of looks for, but it can be also incremental innovation. And businesses need both, right? So that will only happen if you invest into learning, doing, and filling up your kaleidoscope. So I think that the best way to, was expecting a bigger reaction from this slide. So this is how I see creativity. I think you have to have a beginner's mindset, even with stuff that you do know, and learn how stuff works. So I've been doing a lot of work with influencers and social and video platforms and all that for the past decade, at least. And I know a lot about it. The ins and outs, how to produce it, and how to put on the platform, and the algorithms, and all the levers you have to pull, whatever. And I just spent last week 4 days at Fica in London, and I learned a lot about things that I already knew, even if it was just from a different perspective. So deepening my knowledge on something that I was an expert at takes a beginner's mindset, and I think that was the thing that helped me the most in developing my career. and essentially being happy with what I do, which I think that money is great and happiness is better. So, I don't know everybody here. I know there are some people that don't work in businesses that are perceived as creative. I think every business has to be creative. But just to break it down, how I see creativity and how that whole kaleidoscope theory applies, let me just give you 2 examples of how creativity works in real life. So this is how painting went down in the 19th century. So rich folks would go to the studio and the guy would have a midget and a dog and do paint, right? And do you have any idea what painters did like for half of the day in their studios? Any guess? They never paint. So they get pigment and oil and mix it together a little bit because it was going to dry up and paint. The pigment was expensive. So they wake up early, mix paint, then the midget and the dog and the rich person comes in and they start painting, then they do some more painting. But yeah, that's how it operated, and maybe not really efficient, but it's what it is. So in 1841, this guy called John Rand said, wait a minute, I'm going to premix paint and I'm going to put it inside a tube of aluminum so paint never goes bad. So I just wake up, squeeze the tube, bring the midget and the dog, and just plow away on the painting. And most folks said, yeah, that's great, but it's really expensive and it's not worthwhile. I get it, the whole thing, efficiency, but it's the 19th century, we're just relaxing, right? And we're not going to go with that. Fortunately, some folks said, wait a minute. If I don't have to mix paint, why am I going back to the studio? Yeah, I really fond of the midget and the dog, but still, I don't have to go to the studio. So they grabbed everything they used to paint, and I don't know the technical terms, but like canvases and brushes, I don't know. You have to educate me on that one. And they went outside and started painting what they saw, landscapes and different people and whatnot. And it's great that they did that because without that, we wouldn't have had artists like Monet, Cézanne, and Renoir. And this is the birth of one of the most influential schools of painting ever. Because people challenged the status quo and said, I have something that can change the way I do my work. By the way, you can nod. If my kids would behave like this when I was talking, this would be, my life would be the best. You're all right. So yeah, changing the way you do stuff with the same tools is a creative way. It's a way that leads you to more creative outputs. Second example, curiously, 100 years later, in 1941, a Swiss electrical engineer by the name of Georges de Mistral had a dog, and he took the dog for a walk, and the dog's fur was like full of, I don't know what's it called, things that you get from weeds and stuff and whatever it's called. And so he goes back and he's like wiping the dog's fur, and he's like, I've seen this before. So what George de Mistral rationalized about this experience was, so I have something that has like a furry texture, and I don't know, it's that crab that just comes onto the dogs has like a hook on it. So it's like kind of velour and crochet needles. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the best invention ever, and what makes my horns easier. Yeah. This is how Velcro was invented. So a guy walking his dog that had a lot of stuff in his kaleidoscope said, wait a minute. So that's the way I break creativity down. You use stuff you have in a different way. You combine stuff you have in ways that haven't been combined before. True? You didn't invent paint and brushes and whatever, and buildings that you paint on, right? You use it in a different way. You think about things differently. You have to have that beginner's mindset. Do not be afraid to experiment, because that's how you get the big breakthroughs. So that's all great, and not to put you on the spot, but what I do, and it's very fortunate that Vanessa was here before. If you haven't seen the talk, please see it, because it's two different looks at it. Vanessa can do whatever the hell she wants. I can't. I know. Clients. I know. But in essence, you're an artist. I'm not. Vanessa, obviously, I know, can express her full creativity, and because she does art. And if people like it, that's great. Fortunately, a lot of people like it, and should. It's great. And some brands say, wow, let's collaborate. Okay? But it's pure creativity. What I do at the agency is different. What I do is create value. I sell cars and Coca-Cola and razor blades and whatever in a creative way, I hope. But it's very different. And you, if you work in a creative industry, I think you have to understand that there's a difference. I can come up like with the most clever headline known to man, but if it doesn't sell, we have a problem. Because what my business is creating value, not being creative. Okay? So I just want to leave that note because it gets confused a lot. If you want to just be pure creative, be artists, it's fine. But don't expect everybody to like it because you're not creating value. And it's interesting that, and this is not a knock on advertising, I still love advertising. I've worked in brand communications for 25 years, and it's not like, oh, the devil, now I'm doing good work. Absolutely not. But it is easy when you have invested so much in learning so much stuff and trying to be really clever and doing different stuff that you get enamored by every headline, every ad, every TV spot, every radio spot you produce. And it's a trap, because if it doesn't sell, it's not good. And a lot of people in advertising like David Ogilvy, which is great, I think it's unbelievable. A lot of fans of Bill Bernbach with all those Volkswagen ads that were just unbelievable with that long copy, still masterpieces today. I'm more of a Howard Gossage fan. So Howard was semi-famous in the 60s and 70s, known as the Socrates of San Francisco, and I think that was a big joke of everybody else on him, because they just didn't understand what he was about. So Howard got a firehouse and he set it up as his agency, and Hemingway would come in, and I'm not joking, Ernest Hemingway would hang out with him. And it was a very diverse crowd, and Howard was like what you do today in social media with newspapers, because you really figured out how people use media. It's really clever stuff. But my favorite quote from Howard is that nobody reads ads. People read things that interest them. Sometimes that's an ad. And this is the line between being an artist and being a professional creative at a business. You gotta create stuff that interests people. And if you're not interested in learning stuff and knowing a lot of random things, how are you gonna be interesting to people, right? So we really need to invest, double down on that investment. So, to kind of wrap this up, 10 years ago, well, I'm always complaining about something, but 10 years ago I was really, really hardcore complaining on how difficult it was to find young digital talent for agencies. It was really hard 10 years ago. And I complained a lot about that. And one day, somebody that is very much smarter than I am said, well, if you went out and teach them how to do it, maybe you'd find the talent. I felt pretty damn stupid that day. I see a few of my former students here, so that's very gratifying. So I already taught at some colleges, but I really doubled down on teaching in a project called Edit here in Lisbon. That I was one of the founding teachers 10 years ago. So I invested. I thought I was investing into, well, making some cash, obviously, from teaching. I thought I was investing into broadening the talent pool that we have in Lisbon, because I worked at an agency that had 200 people and we needed more. So I thought it was an investment in, I'm going to get talent. what it turned out to be was the biggest investment in my career in learning how to be a creative director. Because explaining things to people that do the same thing that you do is kind of easy. Like, what's an insight? What's a headline? What's the difference between how you write for TV and radio? Explain that to a nurse. And I've done that. My lovely wife is down there, and she had done my digital marketing course. Try explaining what you do to somebody that doesn't have the same knowledge foundation that you have. You don't learn a lot more, but you give them your knowledge about what you have. And that is maybe the best investment you can do, is really going deep and hardcore in your core skills. That will make you, in my opinion, really, really better at what you do. So I quit that school 1 year ago. Because I thought that, well, we were still sticking, it's not a knock on them, but they're a business. Well, my opinion is that the needs of the market have evolved, and the needs of the people have evolved, and we should have a different kind of offering. They thought differently, and I'm fine. So I'm gonna do something else, and this is what I'm doing right now. It's a project called Shaker, which I'm not very sure what it is. And I was talking to Vanessa about that right first. Like, oh wow, really exciting, you have a new project. Like, yeah, no clue what it's about. But essentially, what drove me to do this, I had the idea two years ago, but I thought that being creative director at the agency and a husband and father and studying abroad and this at the same time was going to work out. It didn't work out. So left the agency, spent time with my family and my kids, and having a good time relaxing and investing into something that I'm not really certain what it is. But what drives me to do this project is it comes from the learnings of doing the project with Edit 10 years ago. Right now, a lot of people are trying to teach coders to be how to code. We're on the verge of 5G, and I believe that no brand, no agency is ready for the ridiculous amount of digital content we're going to need for brands to compete. Because with 5G, we're not going to get like 2 gigs of data, because that will go in like 5 minutes, right? And the consumption of video on mobile devices has really gone up. So what I'm guessing is we're going to need a lot of full stack content creators, people that know how to write content and do it consistently across every platform, and not be directors or like professional movie editors, but understanding how to do graphic composition, how to make it consistent, how to take a picture, how to make a movie, how to cut stuff together and make it into a story. So that is what Shaker is about. It's, in essence, investing again in the industry. We're going to need these folks in a year and a half, 2 years. And I'm trying to jumpstart that. No clue how this is going to pay the bills. But this attitude has served me right in the past, investing. So that's that. Thank you for your time. Once again, thank you for the invitation. For me, this was great to think about how what I've been doing is actually in an investment. And like any investment, you don't really know what you get in return. So that's that. Thank you.